All right, this is going to be how to take a color photo and to apply your own kind of color combinations, which can be very expressive or very simple or very subtle or very out there, depending on what colors you work with in your duotone settings. So you're going to find your image, and I'm going to copy my image, and then I'm going to toggle over to Photoshop and start a new document. Once you've got your new artwork, paste it in there. And I'll zoom up a bit so I can see what I'm looking at. And again, this is for the example where I want to have various tonalities in this image that will get affected when I apply the duotone settings. So I'll pause now while you're looking for your image. All right, so just a couple of things here. For the example, I'm going to use some outrageous colors and change my flowers from the normal red, pink, and soft colors of these roses and the greens to something completely unusual that you would never expect. However, the first step that you want to do when you're doing this is, if you're looking on screen, is you need to turn this from the mode that it is, which is RGB, most likely, into the grayscale mode. But don't do it right away, because there's another something you should know about turning an image to grayscale, or better yet, known as black and white. So if we go to images, if we go to adjustments, you'll see that one of the choices underneath adjustments is black and white. And I'm pointing at it right now. So I've gone to black and white, and what I want you to see is this would be what would happen if I just turned the image to grayscale. This is the effect that I would get. You might want it to look different. Here's what it looks like with a blue filter, a lot more dark tonalities. Here are some settings: darker, green filter, high contrast blue, high contrast red, infrared, lighter, maximum black, maximum white, neutral density, red filter, yellow filter. I'm going to go back up actually to default, surprisingly, and then show you one last thing here, which is how I can get some more differentiation in the contrast here, is by sliding these sliders, increasing or decreasing the amount of information being changed from an existing color to a grayscale color. So I have adjusted the red slightly, and I'm adjusting the yellow a little bit, making this a little bit darker, bringing the green to maybe a little bit of a lighter shade of green here, because wherever greens are, you can see it's changing where greens were inside the vase or leaves. So there's the greens, green component. So what you want to do is adjust this so that you think your black and white looks awesome. Now, again, that is a subjective set of directions, but one thing for sure is you don't want any areas too solidly black or too solidly white if you want to see detail, which is what I want here. So I'm happy with those settings, and I will click OK when I'm happy with that. So those are my new colors of black and white. Now, it is actually not truly a grayscale image right now. It isn't. It is still in the RGB mode, even though you've told it to look like black and white. If you looked at the channels palette, you would see it still contains RGB channels. The point being, what we're doing in this duotone technique is we are changing the kinds of channels that we have. So right now we have still work that is in the RGB mode, and you can even see that the name of the file to the right of it shows the mode or the color modality or model, RGB. However, now when I go to image mode and tell it to be grayscale, it won't just automatically use the default settings, it'll use these settings. So now I turn it to grayscale. And can I flatten it? Sure. You don't have to flatten it, but I'm going to. So now you'll notice that it says discard color information to control the conversion, use image adjustments black and white. Well, that's what I just taught you. It's exactly what we just did. So here I'm discarding the color information, and now you'll see I have a single channel called gray. Okay? So to go ahead and do that. If you haven't already, I'll give you a moment and I'll pause. Now that this is on grayscale, I'm going to go back over here where it says image mode again, and I'm going to change it from mode grayscale to duotone. In the old days when I started out in graphic design and illustration, duotone meant the mixture of two inks usually to create a more sophisticated look on print jobs where you could only afford black and another color. This duotone works a little differently than that. I'll show you how. I'm going to choose duotone now. And right away, whatever last colors that I used are in here. So I need to remove some of those. I'm going to change this from tritone to duotone because those are my last settings. And I'm also going to change this, please be looking on screen, to black for one and white for the other. Please be looking. Now that's essentially what we had a moment ago. But these color names must be in here. Even if they're not the right names, there has to be a name in here or it will balk at you. So I'm just showing you right now, this is just black and just white. All right, so just black and just white is how it looked a moment ago. Now when you're considering doing this technique, you can do something that mixes two colors together to create a rich looking image. So I could change this black color, let's say, to red. And now I have red and white. Please be looking. And now instead of white here, I'll make this black and it'll be kind of intense, right? So the names at the end should be correct because if you're sending this to a printer, he'll be really confused as to why red says black and black says white when he outputs the films. Now, that's in effect that uses 100% of black where black is supposed to be, and I should say not or, 100% of red where 100% of any tonality is. So I'm going to ask you to please suspend your discomfort and look on screen. So if you're uncomfortable, that's okay. Just look up anyway. All right, so here's what I want to have happen, just to show you how this works. I do not want any black anywhere in this image that there is 100% content. So, oops. So I'm going to click on this little line here, which is called the curve, and it opens up the duotone curve. Currently, what is set is the proper amounts of color in each one of these boxes. Even though it doesn't say 5 after 5 and 10 after 10 here, that is what's going on. As soon as I do this, and I come over to the 100% area, and this is the black one I'm changing right now, and I changed 100% area of black to have 0 area of black, everything turned to 0. This will be confusing if you're trying this for the first time. It might be kind of weird. Here at 95, I only want to have 50%. That's probably not a good idea. But if I go through all these and I start putting zeros in, please watch. This is strange the way this works, but I'm putting zeros into all these fields because I need there to be something, otherwise it just defaults to something else. And maybe I really am okay with this having a higher value here. So 80, where anything that was 95% black was. And maybe I also want it to be 80 where 90% was. That was 70, I want 80. And then I want 80 where 80 goes. And then I want, let's say 60 60. So it's kind of hideous. Yeah, looks really bad. But what you're doing is you're controlling the values of the color and placing them only where you want. So here I could put 5 at 50, and 5 at 60, and 5 at 70, and then I'm kind of liking the way this looks. It looks really kind of unusual and sort of fun, kind of like that. You need to have a value in each one of these fields. If I go to the red now, I'm going to click OK. That's the black's been adjusted. And I go to the red curve now. And again, I might want to recommend that you put the correct values in when you start, because it will give you a baseline somewhere to begin from. So I'm putting the correct values in each one of these fields so that I can adjust them and see what happens to create what I want to have happen here. All right, now I have all the correct values in. But I've decided that anywhere there is 20% gray value or tonality value, I want that to be 50. That'll bump up the red considerably. Not necessarily what I want to do. I'll put it back down to 20. Let's say where there's 5, I want that to be 0. That'll make it a lot lighter in a lot of areas. You see what's happening here? Now 10% of value of gray where red is being applied is now white or 0. 20% doesn't have 20% red. When I type 0 in, it has 0. Do I want it to be more than 20? Sure, let's make it 10. Oops, 10. So it's creating sort of a silkscreen effect or a controlled color effect. Let's try this. I'm going to go where there's 50 on here and put 0. Okay? Looks really frightening. Click OK. I'm going to click on the black and do the same thing. Where there's 50, I'm going to put 0. And click OK. Now I'm going to add another color, ink 3. So I'm going to change from duotone to tritone and add a color so that you can see what this is doing. I'll add yellow. Okay? Everywhere the correct values are. This is mixing. But what if I, again, go through and put 0 in for all of them, except for at 50, I'll put in 100. And then I'll go through again and put 0 for the rest. So I can control the exact location and amount of color as you mix the color. Here I can go back in and mess with this some more. I'll make this 50, I'll make this 50, I'll make this 50. So it becomes your own color, not the existing kind of color. All right, so here's where it says all ink names must be specified. When I tried to close the dialog, it didn't like that. And what's also interesting is you could go back, even though this is called red, I could make this be purple or some other color, and it doesn't know what the color really is. It's whatever it thinks you're telling it to be. Here, black, I can change that to a cyan-y blue. All right, so again, if I grab an image, copy the image, or bring it in from something of your own, paste it, go to image, edit transform, no, image mode, grayscale. It's going to put in basic grayscale, and then edit, image mode, duotone. It's going to use the same colors I just used in the same values. So do you see how this could be really pretty amazing and exciting, kind of a way of experimenting with color? I realize, of course, you don't have tons of free time, but if you do have, You can try these techniques out and see what they create for you. Anytime I switch a color here, it's going to really change the look of the entire thing. So here I'll change this magenta tonality to a real red or to a green. And here's how I can sort of create my own sort of a blue fire thing here. I'll tell this yellow to be blue. And now I have blue fire. And these are just like random settings I'm playing around with for the values. I think you guys should try this for the next few minutes. But that is how to work with duotones and tritones in Photoshop. You may find a use for it.